the hearing procedure, call Ms. Wasinski up. Let it be for the record that she has not appeared.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
All right, we're on here.
We're ready? Calling the Public Safety Committee meeting to order. This is a hearing procedure. I am Suzette Grisham, Committee Chair. This matter is here for a hearing before the Public Safety Committee of the Common Council of the City of West Allis. This license hearing is being held pursuant to Section 125.12 of the Wisconsin statutes in the matter of the complaint against Catherine Wasinski. Let it be noted for the record that the following committee members are present. We have Alderman Rote, Alderman Stefanski, Alderman Turner, Alderwoman Ranke, and myself, Suzette Grisham, as chair. We have our Assistant City Attorney, Rebecca Monti, who is, Assistant City Attorney. Please identify yourself, which would be?
Attorney Rebecca Monti.
Okay, prosecuting this matter.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nick Serwin is prosecuting
Thank you.
The City Attorney's Office. Sorry.
I was kind of segueing into that. I'm sorry. Is acting as advisor to the committee, which would be Rebecca Monti. For the record, we will now have everyone state their appearances and the nature of, there is nobody here to state their appearances. So I'm going to move forward to the second section, which is the nature of the hearing. Ms. Wasinski is not here for the committee to make a decision as it relates to the complaint against her, which was filed with this committee. Under the provisions of 125.12 of the Wisconsin statutes and Section 902.20 of the West Allis Revised Municipal Code, this hearing has been convened for the purpose of determining whether any of the charges against Ms. Wasinski is true, and to make a recommendation based on that determination. The committee will examine the evidence concerning the charges as presented by both sides. The committee will evaluate and then impartially weigh that evidence. We will then determine whether or not any of the charges have been proven solely upon the evidence introduced at this hearing. This hearing is open to the public. A verbatim record of the proceedings is being made by audio recording. Ms. Wasinski may be represented by an attorney. Assistant Attorney Nicholas Serwin is here as prosecutor and will present the case against Ms. Wasinski to the committee. Assistant City Attorney Rebecca Monti is present and will serve as legal advisor to the committee on questions of law and procedure and may also direct questions to the witnesses on behalf of the committee. Ms. Wasinski may present her own evidence, call and examine witnesses, cross-examine all of the witnesses against her. Such witnesses will be sworn. Both the complainant and licensee shall be limited to 1 hour each for presentation of testimony, not including cross-examination or questions from the committee or city attorney representing the committee. The committee chair may extend the time for presentation of testimony to assure a full and fair hearing. Subject to a motion for consideration by the full committee made by a member of the committee, the chair has the final ability to rule upon what questions are permitted, objections, and motions as procedural matters, admissibility of evidence, and all similar issues. Accordingly, all objections, questions, and motions should be directed to the chair.
Miss Grisham.
Yes?
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
I know she's not here, but I thought we would go through the procedural. Do I have to do this with?
so
our
if you
next
guys
presenter?
want to have the hearing, you could, but this per statute, she was notified of this hearing, and she was notified that if she failed to appear, the allegations of the complaint shall be taken as true. And so then you kind of just move on to the phase of deciding what to do, assuming that all the allegations are true.
Fair enough. So with that being said, is there
Madam
any?
Chair, one more point of clarification.
Yes.
The complainant in this matter is Alderman Rote, and so it would be the city's position, or at least the prosecutor's position, that Alderman Rote, you wouldn't be able to vote in this matter. I think we've talked about that a long, long time ago.
Okay. This isn't a matter that needs to go into closed session, though. Alderman Rote can stay here as far as if there's a motion made or otherwise.
Unless you vote to go into closed session. you
Okay.
have to.
I don't have any desire to go into closed session. At this point, we would just need a motion, correct? Okay. Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to revoke, is that what we're looking? Revoke the license? Is that
Rebecca?
worded properly?
If that's what you guys,
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. You still kind of have to consider the allegations like you would even if she was here and decide what an appropriate response would be. If that's what you guys believe, then that's fine.
I read through everything, so.
Okay.
Okay.
I recommend, my motion is to revoke.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second by Alderman Turner. Is there any discussion on this? Okay. Do we do a roll call vote?
That'd be my preference, yeah.
Yes, and just to make it clear that Alderman Rote's not
Okay,
participating.
Alderman Rote is recused, correct? Alderman Stefanski?
Aye.
Alderman Turner?
Aye.
Alderwoman Renke?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay. Now, my apologies. Will I have to go through this all again?
It would be my position that.
Oh, I wish you would have just stopped me
No,
while
I'm
I was
sorry.
going.
I would- I
That's
didn't
okay.
wanna-
I know
I
you were
was-
like, that's okay. I was on a stride.
Yeah, you were going.
Yeah, I was rocking and rolling. I almost wanted to put both in here, but then I didn't see anybody here. So,
Yeah, they're out in the
okay,
hall, aren't
so
they?
that was a really good practice.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes, I do remember that. Okay.
Just in case anything ever changes, because I know we might get somebody new in the
Right.
future, so that's why I didn't put names in there. Just leave it more generic. But-
Okay, we're not solidifying our positions. It's always fluid.
Good evening, council.
Good evening. Okay, we are going to hear item 2, 2023-0680, summons and complaint in the matter of complaint against Addie's Pub LLC, 8812 West Greenfield Avenue, agent Addie Serkaniak. I did that well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I am the committee chair, Suzette Grisham. This is a matter here for the hearing before the Public Safety Committee of the Common Council of the City of West Allis. This license hearing is being held pursuant to Section 12512 of the Wisconsin statutes in the matter of the complaint against Addie's Pub LLC.
Madam Chair, if I may, just so we don't get too far into that, I am acting as the prosecutor once again, and just as we were on the record last time, Attorney Monty will be the attorney for the committee. I have, do I make an appearance real quick?
Yeah, Addie's Pub appears by Attorney Andrew Arena.
As we are beginning this, before we go through all the semantics for the hearing, the parties have had a discussion about a proposed resolution. And I would say we're submitting that, or it's being submitted by the licensee and his attorney as proposed conditions in lieu of holding a hearing. And so it would be my position that it might be most appropriate for the committee to consider that or have a discussion on that proposal. If you choose to go into closed session, I think that would be appropriate at that time as well. My proposal, and I have the officers present as well, is that if that fails or if there's not this ongoing back and forth, because anything that is a new condition without a hearing would have to be a consensual condition. So the parties would have to agree on that, not including myself. And so I think there's the opportunity to have that discussion prior to a hearing if the committee so chooses, or we can just proceed right to the hearing.
Does that make sense? or-
Not entirely.
Okay,
because-
so there's a proposal from the respondent for how to resolve this, and so Attorney Serwin's advising that perhaps you consider that prior to having a hearing, so we can save the time of a hearing if it is acceptable to the committee. If it's not acceptable, then the attorney will have to confer with his client and decide if additional conditions that you might suggest would still be acceptable, or if they'd prefer to go to a hearing, and then we would go to the hearing.
Okay, and Attorney Serwin, you're going to present those conditions, or we're having?
There's a signed copy, and I mean, since they're coming from defense, I'm gonna have defense probably go through those and explain what that means to the licensee. I will say that I did help negotiate, to some extent, a lot of these are the conditions that they are willing to go for, and so I'm gonna be mostly silent at this point.
Okay.
Do you need a copy, or should we give a copy
No.
of the signed version?
You can give a copy of the signed version. I have a copy.
I have an unsigned version, that's the only thing I have. Do you wanna read from that one and give them the signed one? Okay.
Take that.
Trade ya. Sure.
Well, good evening, everybody. Most of you probably don't know who I am except for Rebecca, because I've done a lot of work in these matters in Milwaukee. And a little bit about myself is that I've been involved with and help operate a company that's actually based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, called Bar Investment Bar Management Group. We develop concepts, franchise, and own about 400 company stores. So I oversee the legal aspects of most of those 400 stores. Some of our stores that you may have heard of or have been to is one is Howling at the Moon. It's very popular down in Orlando, Florida. We're going to open one in Milwaukee, but that's kind of on hold right now. We were initially started with a place called Have a Nice Day Cafe, and we've sprouted out into different aspects. So in my role as a lobbyist and lawyer for the Tavern League of Wisconsin, somehow this is how Adi got to me. And the first thing we did is we looked at somewhat of a proposal by Attorney Serwin, who fortunately I have somewhat of a relationship with him. And before I reached out to him, I talked about some of the things that he should be doing to change the culture of his location. Now, that location is one that I'm very familiar with because I actually represented the previous owner who sold it to Adi on a land contract. So he has a large amount of investment. He has a lot at stake here. And my understanding of what has happened there is that there was a couple of places that closed, and there's another place, and I'm not going to name the other places, but because I don't believe in throwing somebody under the bus, but there's an issue where he's inherited a bad element, and he's got kind of the wrong culture there. So the first thing I approach with Adi is, well, you have to change your culture, and that's attitudes of people within the establishment and attitudes of people that are coming there that, in reality, that's not really a good customer. We don't want customers that bring baggage and have problems and just puke those all over the inside of the business per se. If you look at some of the incidents in the summons and complaint in this matter, like one of them is a girl comes in, sits down, orders water, and then throws it in a bartender's face, starts an issue. I mean, like, who does that, right? I mean, she doesn't even spend a single dollar in the place and creates problems. It's obviously the wrong type of clientele. I think there was another guy that walked out and just got a gun out of his car and started shooting it. I mean, this is a problem. So how do we change that culture? And so we look at this proposal that we have, and I think the way that you change the culture, first off, is you have to change the interior security from a notion of like being a bouncer and that they're there to maintain the police with force. That, in fact, is not what I consider to be an appropriate door person. So, for example, I believe in having people at the door that are smaller in size and stature, and we call them goodwill ambassadors, and their job is to have open eyes, open ears, mingle with people, and be almost like an actual patron rather than a staff employee. They need to develop a rapport, and you'll notice that there's an element in this that we're going to do some trainings with people that I know and work for me. We have an outline, and we do this type of training regularly. But the idea is people need to know that these people are here to protect you, and they're going to keep you safe. If you think you have an issue, and it's open communication from the staff to the patron. And how you best enforce these issues is a permanent banning, which is done with a scanning device, which allows you to take that ID, identify that person, and then you can permanently ban them in the system. So if they come in and they go to swipe that ID, and every ID would be swiped, the system would tell you that the person's banned, that they're not allowed in. That's one way to start turning over the type of clientele that you have. The next is, I think that's very important if you look at the summons and complaint, there seems to be some issues with people doing things between their cars and the establishment. I think there was one instance where somebody went to their car and maybe obtained a weapon. That actually is a challenging thing now in our society with carrying concealed weapons. It's legal to carry a concealed weapon. You're not supposed to drink or take them into a bar, but if they have a CCW, that weapon might be in the car. If they've done some drinking, they might do the wrong things with that weapon. The way that I think we best deter some of that is the outside security is uniformed and at his option at times, and we probably will start for a while with armed security that have proper permits and insurance, proper uniforms, and much like police officers, they will have body cameras that will augment the camera system that's there. He has a lot of the outside covered, but that particular type of security person is there for two reasons: to monitor who's coming, what car they're coming in, where they're parking their car, and knowing and being aware of who they are. And then next, when you're closing, they get to monitor noise, peacefulness, and reach out in a friendly way. And they know what car they're going to. They start to get to know the clientele. They're there regularly. And that also helps to change the culture where people will be like, armed security's here, there's no messing around. For a weird phenomenon in the last 10 years is people that go to establishments and actually almost go there to look for trouble or don't have a problem engaging in some kind of trouble. And so that's the person that you want to turn over. So number one is additional security, and it's security outside. I think it's very important. Security inside will be by trained internal security people who will be trained to be aware of issues before or as they occur and how to deal with them properly.
One point that I wanted to discuss real quick on the number one is that via our negotiation, what we talked about is that that was going to be in effect for the remainder of this license period, and you wanted the chance to kind of evaluate that going forward, and so that would be kind of expire at that point and can be reevaluated on renewal. Is that what you're proposing?
Well, I most likely will be present myself on a lot of evenings, and the first thing I want to do is open up communication with the West Dallas Police Department, which we actually had a conversation tonight in the lobby. And the idea of that communication is that everybody's aware of what's going on and if there's a perceived issue that needs to be dealt with. With that in mind, the armed security is expensive. So with agreement of the police department, and if it makes sense, we may want to cut that back. I mean, it's about $25 an hour for a uniformed unarmed person and $45 an hour for an armed person. So the revenue of this establishment, it's kind of a smaller establishment. It'll be tough for the revenue to support that constantly. One of the things that you'll notice we have in here is there will be a cover charge instituted. And the reason for instituting a cover charge is, again, to flip that culture over to a different type of customer. The people that create the most problems spend the least amount of money, and they won't go to a place that has a cover charge generally. So you do that with music choice and an active security crew inside and the institution of a cover charge. If you look at number 3, we talk about, well, number 2 is a very important item also. After 11 p.m., if somebody leaves, there's no reentry. They can't come back in. Once you're in, you're in. Once you leave, you're out. You can't stay. Then outdoor security will make sure they go to their car and leave. So if they think they're going to go out and wait for somebody or create a problem, security will be on them, and that'll be uniform security. No new patrons will be allowed for the rest of the night after maximum capacity is reached. This is another important thing. You reach capacity, door is closed, you're not coming in. And one other thing on number 4 is that the capacity will be reduced from 77 to 62 persons, which will have a much bigger impact on the patron and not as much of an impact on the establishment. So the voluntary reduction of capacity is another important thing. There will be new signage made, there will be rules, and for a while there will actually be a brochure made with letting people know, here are the rules. Any violent, profane, disorderly conduct, violent speech, inappropriate language, will all be reasons that a person could be banned permanently, and that will be enforced as well. Then number 6 is the mandatory staff training, which there will be an outline made of that, which I can provide to the city attorney's office, but that will have, it will cover several issues. Intoxicated persons, identifying them and cutting them off in the right way to avoid arguments or problems. And the training will also massively cover the issue of diffusing bad behavior. What is the right way to calm somebody down and treat them in a way that they feel like they're being treated well and you're their friend, but ultimately they'll be permanently banned. And that goes to the disorderly or disruptive behavior. I mean, I'm a big stickler on that. I don't tolerate swearing or talks that start to become arguments, even if they're amongst friends. That has to be, you have to pay attention for that, and when you identify it, you have to nip it in the bud, so to speak. Now, alcohol service, we're proposing that at 1:45 a.m. firm, there's no more new alcohol drinks served. And then there's a process to calm down the evening and have people leave not in one man rush for the door, in a orderly fashion where they understand that that Addie's is done for the evening, they have to leave. And of course, with 2 security outside, you don't want more than 4 or 5 walking out. So that has to be done in a slow, methodical way. They will be trained on that. We just actually had a discussion. He now has cameras that allow him to monitor things from his cell phone. So if for some reason he's not there, generally Addie, his name is Addie, A-D-I, but he calls the place Oddie's, O-D-D-E-S. But he can look and monitor, and then things are recorded constantly. He just had a situation where a neighbor's car was hit, had nothing to do with him, but she was able to go to him and say, hey, did your cameras catch my car being sideswiped? He found it, identified the car, she got the license number. Appropriate things, I'm sure, took place with that. So those are valuable tools. He does have a good system now, but he will improve that. So we have another thing here is the voluntary closure, which will be 6 months, done by doing
60 days.
60 days.
Total,
Oh, I'm
30
sorry.
days consecutive,
Yeah.
and then another 30 days non-consecutive. So make sure that was 6 months.
Yeah, I don't know why I had that in my mind. But 30 consecutive days would start January, and then for 10 weeks after that, it would be 3 nights. So it'd be closed on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That's right. That would be 30 days. 10 weeks, closing 3 days for the total of the second 30 days.
And just to be clear, that might need to be amended in the agreement, because I think I have in there Monday through Thursday.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is fine.
So Sunday, Monday,
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, okay. Well, just as long as the committee's deciding on the right information.
Right, yeah. So what I would submit to this committee is that I have 2 rules before I get involved in a situation like this. Rule number 1 is you have to listen to me. And if you don't want to listen to me, you're going to be on your own very fast. Rule number 2 is that you have to learn how to work with everybody, including people that are issues, police, everybody, totality of my conversations with him, he's been very open, and he's had some good suggestions himself. I trust him to listen to me.
If you could hold just one moment, please. Just needs a drink of water, I think. I apologize. I just want to make sure all the committee members are here to hear everything.
No, I understand.
We should make sure we have some water in here, especially this time of year. And cough drops. We had the same thing last time. Oh, no problem.
So real quick, just to clarify, it's Monday through Wednesday, not
Yeah.
Monday through Thursday that we have in the paperwork?
Is that what you're agreeing to, Monday through Wednesday? Or is that what you're proposing, actually?
Well, like, that's what we're proposing.
Monday
You could
through
insist that it
Wednesday.
be Thursday, we're not going to necessarily make a big issue out of that, but part of the issue is he still has to make enough to cover the bills and to pay for the implementing of the changes and to pay for the extra security, so
I was just trying to clarify what your
Yeah.
proposal was. If
It is-
Monday through Thursday or Monday through Wednesday?
Monday through Wednesday.
Okay.
And then
Oh,
it's a
Mr.
straight
Vansky,
10
if you
weeks.
could recognize the chair.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's okay.
So that's, what I was saying is that I have great faith that he'll work with me and he'll listen to me. And like, this is really a family business, like his mom is here tonight. I've met and talked to her. I think that he will listen to her too. And she's actually starting to be there a little bit more in the evenings, which is probably a good thing, because sometimes an older lady with the right personality can command respect out of people where they won't push any angles that are negative. That's part of what changing the culture is about, is people understanding I can't do this or that here. That they're going to be held to a high standard of a decent, respectable behavior. And that's done with a lot of these techniques that I've talked about. And I'm certainly not the end-all be-all, so if somebody wants to make another suggestion, we can always add it. But I think we have a very good start here, and from my perspective, he was probably caught a little bit not prepared for the type of clientele that ended up showing up. And it takes an effort to learn how to talk to people and be insistent on your rules. He's new in business and he thinks, I have to be amenable and nice to everybody, or it'll ruin my business. But that actually is the opposite of what you want to be. The good people will appreciate and support somebody who's firm on the rules. Well, just like you have when you have a little child. If the child needs structure, these customers need structure, because in reality a lot of them are immature and never grew up and never had anybody enforcing rules on them. And the good people will understand and help with that to a point. But I think that he's capable of doing it, and I'm looking forward to the additional training that we'll start to do, and we'll do it in January. We'll take advantage of the 30-day closure. If anybody misses a single training session we set up, they're just going to be terminated. That will not be tolerated. It's your duty. You want to work here. That's the way it goes. And that's starting with the tough love, so to speak. To be tough on those employees, tough on those customers, and enforcing the sensible rules that will be created. And so really, I'm asking that we more or less follow our written agreement and we create the model of how a place should be operated in West Dallas. I don't think you have a lot of problems in West Dallas, but when they show up, they explode and very fast, and it takes effort to run a place correctly and not have problems.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
Do you mind if I speak just briefly to the agreement? Okay.
Please do.
Thank you. So I'm not a signatory to this because the way I kind of operate as the prosecutor is, and this has to be a consensual. If we're avoiding a hearing, it has to be a consensual document. And so basically, what I say is, okay, these are the things, the bare minimum I'd be willing to go with. And I had a conversation with Adi some time ago about that prior to council being hired on. They've changed a little bit since that time when council came on and has some procedural knowledge. So this is their kind of proposal, and the way I operate is, what are you willing to offer in order to avoid what might be a worse repercussion once we have a hearing, depending on how the hearing goes. And so this is their proposal. I'm not a part of it or a party to it, but I do think there are some strong points to it with both prospective in terms of avoiding this in the future, which absolutely has to happen, and then reactive or I guess a more of a punitive aspect, which is going to be that closure time. Whether this is sufficient, I guess, is completely up to the committee in general, and so I'll stand by that we negotiated to the point, but this is, I think, really spurred on to their benefit by the licensee. Instead of just showing up and saying, let's fight this tooth and nail, they're proposing this as an option and as an alternative to the hearing.
Thank you. Attorney Monty, I have a question as far as procedural matters. Once we've heard this, obviously we have, can we go into closed session to discuss this? And if we agree, not have to move forward, is that how the procedure should go?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Do we need a consensus in order to go into closed session?
Just a motion and a second as
Okay.
normal.
All right.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Would you mind reading the procedure on the closed session? Thank you. I don't have a copy here with me. Or did you give me a copy?
I think it's at the very back of this procedural guide. I'll find
Okay,
it.
I can do it. It's okay.
It's probably on the agenda too.
It is. It is. Thank you. For agenda item, to the Public Safety Committee may convene in closed session pursuant to the provisions of Wisconsin Statute Section 1985 1A for the purpose of deliberating concerning a case which was subject of any judicial or quasi-judicial trial or hearing before the governmental body. The Public Safety Committee may reconvene in open session after completion of the closed session to consider the balance of the agenda. And there was a motion and a second. Alderman Rote?
Aye.
Alderman Stefanski?
Aye.
Alderman Turner?
Aye.
Alderwoman Ranky?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We are in closed session.
We'll leave and then just hang out.
Yeah, yours is.